I never imagined that a sweater could betray me. But there it was, sprawled across my chest in the recording booth like a cruel joke. Jace's favorite sweater. The one I'd spent hours knitting, pouring my heart into each stitch, lay draped over his shoulders in a video I never wanted to see. I had gone into his apartment to drop off some lyrics he had requested. The place was quiet, music softly humming from the speakers. I picked up his phone to check the notes he'd texted me, just as he stepped out to answer the doorbell. That's when the screen lit up with something I wasn't supposed to see. A video notification from Harmony. Curious, I pressed play. The sight of them hit me like a physical blow. Harmony pressed against Jace, lips moving against his with ease, with familiarity. And he was wearing the sweater I had made him. My sweater. My gift. My heart. I froze. The room felt impossibly small, the hum of the speakers replaced by the thunderous beat of my own pulse. My hands shook. My phone slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. I wanted to storm into the recording booth, throw open the doors, and demand that the world stop spinning. But my body refused. My heart refused. I just watched. They laughed afterward, whispering, tangled in each other's arms like nothing mattered beyond their own selfish pleasure. I had believed him. I had trusted him. And now, I was nothing but a footnote in the story of Jace and Harmony's betrayal. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. How could you? I whispered to the empty room. My voice was hoarse, fragile, but it carried the weight of every lie he'd ever told me. Hours passed. I didn't move. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even cry. I just let the betrayal sink in, bitter and sharp, gnawing at my ribs. Every lyric I had written for him, every melody, every harmony, every late night in the studio, it all felt poison now. By the time Jace returned, I had composed a mask over my face.
Calm.
Collected. Everything he thought I still was. Lyric, what are you doing here? He asked, smiling that careless smile I used to adore. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who had claimed to love me. The man who had sung words I had written, as if they were his own. The man who had been wearing my sweater while lying to me. I'm leaving, I said softly, letting the words hang like a dagger.
What?
Wait, his voice faltered.
Panic?
Guilt? I couldn't tell. I didn't care. Lyric, please talk to me, he pleaded, but I shook my head.
No.
I think you've already said enough, I replied. I walked out, my steps quiet, deliberate, each one a heartbeat of defiance. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The video, the sweater, the betrayal, they were burned into my memory already. And in that moment, as I stepped into the cool night, I made a silent promise to myself. He will not define my music. He will not define me. And one day, he will see what he lost. The next morning, my studio felt different. Empty, echoing, like the walls themselves knew something had ended. I sat at my keyboard, staring at the sheet music I had been working on for Jace's next single. For months, I had poured myself into it. Melodies, lyrics, even whispers of my soul hidden between the lines. And for what? So, he could sing my words to Harmony while wearing my sweater? I pushed the papers away, my fingers brushing over the keys as if testing the strength in my hands. They were mine. My talent was mine. And yet I had been giving it away to someone who didn't deserve it. I picked up my phone and texted Jace. 3 words.
Short. Clean.
Final. I'm done. I hit send and didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one. And just like that, the air around me felt lighter. Not free, exactly, but unshackled. My words would no longer be a gift to someone who treated them, and me, as disposable. My music would belong to me. The first few days were hard. I could hear his voice in my head singing the choruses I had written, and a part of me wanted to call him, to beg him to understand. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I opened a blank document, fingers poised, and began to write for myself. The words came slowly at first. Hesitant. Bitter. Angry. Heartbroken. But then they flowed, raw and true, the way they had never flowed for Jace.
Every lyric was a piece of me.
Every melody carried the weight of betrayal, the sting of heartbreak, and the fierce pulse of defiance. I wrote for hours, losing myself in the music, forgetting the world outside my studio. And when I finally stopped, I listened to what I had created. The song was not about revenge. Not exactly. It was about reclaiming my voice. About standing tall even when someone else had tried to tear me down. About telling the world, I am here. I am unbreakable. I recorded a rough demo and posted it online, uncertain, nervous. I didn't promote it. I didn't hype it. I just released it and waited. Within hours, the response was electric. Messages flooded in. Strangers, friends, even a few minor artists who had shared my work before. They called it authentic, moving, and powerful. And for the first time, I felt my words hitting people for the right reasons, not because someone else had performed them, but because they were mine. Meanwhile, Jace's new single, the one I had written for him, was scheduled to drop. I didn't listen to it. I didn't want to. But the notifications came anyway. Poor reviews, social media backlash, fans complaining it felt empty, uninspired. Without my heart in it, without my voice guiding it, his music floundered. Harmony tried to maintain her usual confidence, smiling in interviews, posting photos with Jace. But the truth was out.
People saw through it.
Fans whispered, she doesn't have the magic lyric brought to him. And I didn't feel the satisfaction of revenge. I felt relief, clarity, pride. That night, I sat in my studio, headphones on, listening to my demo. The lyrics hummed through me like electricity. This was my sound, my life, my power. Jace had lost me, but the world was finally starting to find lyric. I smiled, a small, private victory. And I whispered to myself, almost like a vow. He had his chance. Now, it's my turn. The first time I heard my own song on the radio, I froze. Not because I didn't recognize it, I had lived it, breathed it, written every syllable, but because it wasn't coming from Jace. It was me, lyric. And the sound of my own voice carried something I hadn't realized I'd been missing, freedom. I sat on the edge of my bed, headphones on, staring out the window at the city lights, letting the melody wash over me. Every note, every beat, every word was mine. I didn't need anyone else to validate it. I had written it for myself, and now the world was listening. The response was immediate. Social media exploded with clips, shares, and reactions. Comments poured in. Finally, music that feels real. This is Lyric's moment. She's unstoppable. I couldn't stop smiling. For months, I had been the invisible force behind Jace's career, the ghostwriter of hits, the secret behind the charm. And now, for the first time, people were hearing my voice, feeling my words, experiencing my heart. The next week, my song climbed the charts. Each day it rose higher, my name flashing in lights, my lyrics becoming the soundtrack to people's lives. Strangers emailed me, telling me how my words had moved them, how they had felt the heartbreak, the betrayal, the empowerment. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing approval. I was creating it. Meanwhile, Jace's career began to crumble. Without my lyrics, his songs felt hollow. The single I had written for him, the one released after I left, received scathing reviews. Fans noticed the difference immediately. Twitter blew up with comparisons. Where's the magic lyric used to give him? This new album feels empty, like he's lost his heart somewhere. Harmony tried to salvage her image, posting selfies with Jace, attending every talk show she could find, but the charm felt forced. Audiences saw through it, fans whispering about the betrayal that had been caught on video. And me? I didn't even need to engage. I just kept creating, letting my music speak louder than any gossip ever could. One afternoon, I received an email from a radio station manager. Lyric, we want your exclusive interview. Your song is #1 across the country, and we want to know your story. I stared at it, disbelief flashing through me, then laughed softly. The girl who had been used, ignored, and betrayed was now in control. I typed back, calm, confident, decisive. Yes, I'll come. That night, I sat in my studio, reviewing my next song. Inspiration struck, sharp and electric, and I let it flow. No edits. No compromises. This was raw lyric, untamed and unstoppable. The melody carried the betrayal I had endured, the anger I had felt, and the triumph I had claimed for myself. I whispered into the empty room, almost to myself. He wanted my words, my heart, he'll never get them again. The next day, I saw the headlines. Lyric tops charts while Jace's album flops. Songwriter turned star. The rise of lyric. My chest swelled with pride, but more importantly, with peace. I didn't need revenge to feel satisfied. I didn't need to watch Jace fall. I only needed to keep doing what I had always done best, right?
Create.
Own my voice. And for the first time in my life, the world was listening to me. The call came unexpectedly. One moment I was finishing a late-night recording of a new track. The next, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Lyric, a gravelly voice said. Sebastian. I want to meet you. Now. I blinked. Sebastian. The legendary, grumpy, impossibly difficult producer who everyone whispered about in the industry. The man who had launched careers and ended them just as easily. My heart thumped. This wasn't just an opportunity. This was a storm waiting to hit. I found myself standing outside his studio the next morning, rehearsing what I would say, what I would play. But the moment I walked in, it didn't matter. Sebastian was already there, leaning against the mixing board with arms crossed, eyes sharp and assessing. Your lyric, he said flatly. No handshake, no smile. Just that unflinching stare that felt like it could cut through steel. Yes, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I write my own songs. He raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. I've heard of you. #1 hit, viral sensation. Your ex's career is tanking, right? I flushed, but I kept my expression neutral. That's irrelevant. He smirked just slightly.
Right.
Let's focus on you then. Play me something. I nodded and moved to the keyboard. Fingers poised, I let the melody flow. My melody, raw and unfiltered, the story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate triumph. Each note carried everything I had lived through, everything I had conquered. Sebastian didn't speak. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink for what felt like an eternity. I wanted to shrink under the weight of his gaze, but something inside me refused. This was my music, my story. I wouldn't apologize for it. Finally, he leaned back, fingers tapping the edge of the console. Impressive, he said, his voice low, rough, deliberate. But not flawless. Not yet. I swallowed. I can fix that.
Good.
He stepped closer, eyes scanning the sheet music. Most people don't even come close. They're too timid, too careful. You have fire.
Talent.
And you're stubborn enough not to let anyone control it. I felt a small spark of pride, though I didn't show it. Thank you. I've had practice. He studied me for a long moment, and then just like that, he said, I only work with the best. And I think you might be it. My chest tightened. Not from flattery, not from ego, but from the weight of his words. Sebastian didn't hand out praise lightly. He didn't work with anyone he didn't consider worthy. And right now, I felt like I had been measured and passed. I'd be honored, I said finally. He nodded. Good. Because I don't do second chances. If we work together, you give me your best. No excuses. No shortcuts. You have to be ready to burn everything you know down and start fresh. I'm ready, I said, with more conviction than I realized I had. Sebastian smirked, the faintest ghost of a smile tugging at his mouth. I like that. Most people aren't. And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't just a meeting. This wasn't just an opportunity. This was the start of something bigger, something raw, challenging, and dangerous in the best possible way. As I left the studio, the city lights blurred past the windows of the cab, but I didn't feel nervous. I felt alive. I felt like lyric, finally, entirely, unapologetically hers. And I knew one thing for certain. Sebastian only worked with the best, and he had just told me I was among them. Working with Sebastian was nothing like I had imagined. He wasn't charming, he wasn't polite, and he certainly wasn't easy. He was exacting, relentless, and grumpy in ways that made me second-guess myself constantly. But beneath the rough edges, there was a brilliance I couldn't ignore. Every critique was sharp but precise. Every suggestion refined my music in ways I hadn't thought possible. Our first session started early. The studio smelled of coffee, vinyl, and lingering cigarette smoke, a strange comfort. Sebastian sat in the corner, arms crossed, watching me. "Play it again," he said, voice flat but commanding. I took a deep breath and began. The melody rolled out like fire across the keys, my lyrics slicing through the quiet like truth. I could feel him listening, every muscle in his body taut, like a conductor waiting for the perfect note. When I finished, he leaned forward, tapping a finger against the console. "Better," he muttered. "But you're holding back. I can hear it. Don't be polite with yourself. Don't be polite with me." I blinked. I'm giving it everything I have."
No.
"You're giving what's safe. The world doesn't reward safe. They reward risk. They reward honesty. And honesty isn't comfortable." I swallowed, letting the words sink in. He was right, of course. I had always played it safe for others, Jace, the labels, the expectations. Now, under Sebastian, I was learning what it meant to be fearless. Days turned into weeks. We dissected melodies, rewrote lyrics, experimented with harmonies. Each song became sharper, stronger, more distinctly mine. And slowly, the results began to show. My tracks climbed the charts, streams skyrocketed, and the media started calling me the voice of the new generation. One night, after finishing a particularly grueling session, I sat on the piano bench, my fingers sore but my mind buzzing. Sebastian stood nearby, his arms crossed as always, but I noticed something shift in his expression, less impatience, more respect. "You've got fire, Lyric," he said quietly. "Most people I work with burn out before they reach this point. You're still standing, still fighting, still creating." I laughed softly, exhaustion and exhilaration tangled together. "I guess betrayal teaches you a lot about stamina." He tilted his head, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. "And talent, apparently. You've got both." For a moment, the studio felt charged with something more than music. Something subtle, electric, unspoken. I couldn't decide if it was admiration, tension, or something else entirely. I forced myself to focus. "I'm ready to push harder," I said. "Tell me what's next." Sebastian's smirk deepened, and he nodded. "Good. Because the next level isn't easy. And I only work with people who can handle the climb." I swallowed hard. "Then I'll handle it." And I meant it. I was building something bigger than a career. I was building my empire. Every song, every note, every lyric was mine, untainted by Jace or Harmony or anyone who had ever tried to hold me back. And Sebastian, well, he wasn't just a mentor. He was a challenge, a storm I wanted to navigate. And somewhere beneath his gruff exterior, I felt the beginnings of respect that might just turn into something more. I smiled to myself as I left the studio that night, earbuds in, the city humming around me. My music, my voice, my choices, they were finally unstoppable. And I knew one thing. No one, not Jace, not Harmony, not the industry itself, would ever control Lyric again. The first time I saw my face on a billboard, I almost didn't recognize myself. Not because I had changed, though I had in ways subtle and powerful, but because the world finally saw me. Lyric. Not just the songwriter behind Jace's hits. Not just the ghost behind someone else's fame.
Me.
I was in New York for a late-night interview when the photographer handed me a shot of Times Square. My song was playing in the background, booming from every speaker, my name flashing across screens in bold letters. I grinned, disbelief and pride warring inside me. This was real. Meanwhile, the fallout from Jace and Harmony was undeniable. Social media was relentless, the gossip columns scathing. Fans complained, critics mocked, and every review seemed to whisper the same thing. Without lyric, he's hollow. Without lyric, she's talentless. It was strange not to feel satisfaction. I had expected revenge to taste sweet. Instead, it tasted distant. I realized I didn't need them to fall to feel powerful. I just needed to keep climbing, keep creating, keep owning my voice. Sebastian had flown in for the New York sessions, grumbling about the travel, about jet lag, about the madness of the city. But when he stepped into the studio, he was all focus, all precision. Every note, every lyric, every beat was scrutinized, elevated, perfected. "You've got momentum," he said one evening, leaning back against the console with arms crossed. "Most people would crack under it. But you thrive." I smiled, tired but exhilarated. "I've had practice." He studied me, that sharp, calculating look of his that always made me feel both exposed and respected. "You've got fire."
Talent.
"Stubbornness." "That's a dangerous combination." I chuckled softly. "Is that a compliment or a threat?" "A little of both," he said, the faintest ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips. There it was again, that tension. The unspoken challenge in the air whenever he was near. I didn't deny it. I couldn't. It was sophisticated, subtle, electric. It wasn't easy. It wasn't rushed. And somehow, it made me work harder, push further, want to impress him, not because I needed his approval, but because he demanded the best from everyone he touched. Over the next few weeks, my songs topped charts internationally. Fans sent letters, messages, videos of themselves singing along. I was more than just Lyric the songwriter. I was Lyric the artist, Lyric the woman who had turned heartbreak into music that moved people across the globe. And through it all, Sebastian was there. Not just as a producer, but as a presence. Quiet, gruff, exacting, but somehow protective. He challenged me, yes. He pushed me. But he also noticed every nuance, every subtle improvement, every risk I took. And I noticed him noticing me. One night, after a 12-hour recording marathon, I sat at the piano while he leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. "You've grown," he said finally, voice low, deliberate. "Not just your music. You. Your confidence, your control, your fire. Most people burn out before they reach this point." I let the words settle, feeling the weight of them. "I've had motivation," I said softly. He smirked faintly, that corner of the mouth smirk that I was starting to understand was rare for him. "Motivation is cheap. Fire is earned. You've earned it." For the first time, I felt like he wasn't just evaluating me as an artist. He was seeing me. And it scared me just a little because for the first time in years, someone made me feel both challenged and seen at the same time. The world was watching me rise. Jace and Harmony were floundering in the wreckage of what they had lost. And I was standing taller than I ever had, ready to claim everything that was mine. And Sebastian? He was no longer just the grumpy producer. He was the storm I wanted to navigate, the fire I wanted to dance with, and maybe, one day, the one I could trust not to burn me. Working with Sebastian was like walking a tightrope over fire. Every session was intense, demanding, and exhausting, but it was also thrilling. He pushed me harder than anyone ever had, never letting me settle for good enough, never letting me take shortcuts. And somehow, even as I groaned at his critiques, I craved his standards, his challenge, his attention. One evening, after a grueling 12-hour session, we stayed behind in the studio alone. The city outside was a blur of lights and sirens, but inside, there was only the hum of the monitors and the echo of my last recording. I slumped into the piano bench, fingers aching, notes hanging in the air like sparks. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Sebastian said, voice low, almost concerned, but still gruff. "I can't stop," I admitted, leaning forward, letting my forehead rest on the keys. "The music, it's all I have right now. I want it to be perfect." He stepped closer, tilting his head, watching me. "Perfection is dangerous. You think you need it, but sometimes fire is enough. You've got fire, lyric,
Talent.
heart. You don't need to drown it in exhaustion." I lifted my head to meet his eyes, feeling the electricity of that moment. There was something about him, subtle, restrained, magnetic, that made the air feel different. Safe, but thrilling. Challenging, but grounding. I couldn't quite name it yet. You make it sound so easy, I said, half teasing, half serious. It isn't, he replied. And then, almost imperceptibly, he smiled. That rare, fleeting expression that made my heart skip. But you make it look effortless. I swallowed, trying not to let the sudden warmth in my chest show. Effortless? Asked, my voice small, teasing. Sebastian leaned closer, just enough that I could feel the faint scent of coffee and leather from his jacket. Effortless, dangerous, unstoppable. That's you, lyric. And I'm fascinated by it. The word lingered between us, electric and delicate. I realized my pulse had quickened. I wasn't sure if it was nerves, excitement, or something more complicated, and that uncertainty thrilled me. Fascinated, huh? I whispered, letting my fingers hover over the keys again. You don't say that to just anyone. No, he admitted quietly. Only to people who earn it. I let that settle. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the monitors. And in that quiet, I felt the weight of the journey I had taken from betrayal, heartbreak, and being unseen, to standing here with my voice finally heard, my music finally mine, and someone like Sebastian noticing me, challenging me, believing in me. The chemistry between us wasn't loud, didn't need dramatics. It was subtle, sophisticated, simmering beneath the surface like a perfectly tuned chord. It was in the way he noticed every nuance of my work, the way he challenged me to be better, the way he lingered just long enough near the piano to make me aware of his presence. I should go, he said after a long pause, though neither of us moved. I nodded, though reluctantly. Yeah, you should. As he left, I sat back at the piano, letting the silence fill me. My heart still raced, my mind still hummed with the melodies we had created together. I realized then that the fire Sebastian saw in me wasn't just in my music. It was in the way I refused to be controlled, betrayed, or diminished. And maybe, just maybe, he saw something else too. Something like potential. Something like trust. Something like more. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't fear it. I wanted it. The night of my biggest performance yet, I felt the same thrill I had when I first played my songs for myself in that empty studio, except now, the stakes were higher, the lights brighter, and the audience larger than anything I had imagined. The arena buzzed with anticipation. Fans were chanting, holding up signs with my name, my lyrics, my image. And backstage, Sebastian stood quietly, arms crossed as always, but his eyes never left me. There was that familiar tension, commanding, electric, subtle, but beneath it, I glimpsed pride, respect, maybe even something more. Ready? He asked, voice low. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Always. He stepped closer, brushing a hand briefly against my shoulder, not enough to startle, but enough to make me aware of him. My chest warmed at the touch, and I realized how natural it felt to have him near, to feel his presence. It wasn't just professional. It was grounding, comforting, exciting. Don't hold back, he murmured, leaning just slightly so I caught the scent of coffee and leather. Give them everything you've got. All of you. I let out a shaky laugh. You always know how to make me nervous. Good, he said, smirking faintly. Nerves mean you care. The lights went down. My fingers hovered over the piano keys, and I took a deep breath. Then I began. The music flowed like fire, raw and true. My voice carried every moment I had lived through, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the triumph, and the courage to rise. As I sang, I glanced briefly at Sebastian. He was watching me, expression unreadable, but his eyes, they softened. Just slightly, but enough that I felt it. And in that moment I realized I had never felt this understood, this supported, this seen. The audience erupted when I finished. The applause, the cheering, the chanting, it all washed over me, and I felt whole. Every late night, every heartbreak, every moment I had doubted myself, It had led to this. Backstage, Sebastian approached, quiet as always, but this time, he didn't just nod in approval. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered at my jawline, gentle, deliberate. My breath caught. "You were extraordinary," he said softly, voice low enough that no one else could hear. Every note, every word, perfect. I smiled, heart pounding. I had a good teacher. He let out a small, rare chuckle. "I don't teach. I refine. You already had it." There was a pause, a weight in the air, and then he leaned just slightly closer. I could feel the warmth of his chest, the subtle strength of his presence. I didn't pull away. I didn't need to. "You've earned everything," he murmured. "And maybe I've earned the chance to be here for it." My lips curved in a small smile. "I'm glad you are." He let his hand brush mine again, this time just a little longer, lingering in that unspoken space between us. Not possessive, not urgent, but intimate, sophisticated, electric. I realized then that this fire, this trust, this shared understanding, was the kind of connection I had been searching for my entire life. In music, in love, in life. And as the applause from the arena echoed even backstage, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I had taken my heartbreak and betrayal and turned it into power, into music, into legacy. And beside me, Sebastian, the grumpy, brilliant, relentless man who had challenged me at every step, was finally someone I could share it with. Not because I needed him, but because I wanted him. And that choice, above all, felt unstoppable.